Welcome back to the Spector Creative channel. I'm your host, Scott ToyGuru Neitlich. I was the brand manager for DCU Classics, and this is the series where we are doing director's commentary on all of the waves of DC Universe Classics from Mattel. And if you couldn't tell from the visual on screen, we're up to wave 17. And in a lot of ways, this wave was a big experiment for us, and I will explain why and show you what our intentions were. But because of a lot of those intentions, which didn't quite work out the way we wanted, a lot of fans saw this wave as the wave that DCU Classics as a toy line jumped the shark, which, for those of you not familiar with the concept of jumping the shark, it is when a show or a movie or a toy line sort of goes a bridge too far. It all came from when Fonz literally jumped a shark in Happy Days. That's where it comes from. But you know what? I call foul. I call guinea foul with this claim that it jumped the shark because there is a absolute reason for all this, and let me get into that. So let's do a quick roll call like we always do. The line included Pink Lantern Wonder Woman, Black Lantern Hal Jordan, obviously normally a Green Lantern, but in this case a Black Lantern. Also Hal in another flavor, White Lantern. And I'm going to explain this, especially if you're like, why is Green Lantern in all these colors? And why is Wonder Woman in these colors? And in fact, all the figures are. Like, here's Lex Luthor as an Orange Lantern, which, yes, I know he looks like a giant otter pop. But I will explain. There's going to be a lot of explaining in this video. The Atom as a Blue Lantern in his tribal gear with tattoos and awesome staff. I actually really like this figure, even though it's, the Atom. And Scarecrow as Yellow Lantern, which would have been really great if we got to use this head for a regular Scarecrow, because this was a great Scarecrow figure. Blue Lantern Flash. Did I say Blue Lantern Atom? That was Indigo Lantern Atom. It's Blue Lantern Flash. Ooh, almost got a mess up there. And all of the figures built up to a big, but not ginormous, modern Anti-Monitor. The classic DC villain had made a return about this time in the comics and sported a new modern look. Okay, so why? What is the rationale for this wave that has so much Green Lantern going on? Well, the easy off-the-shelf answer is there was a Green Lantern movie in the works, and everyone at Warner, Mattel, and DC were banking on this being the next big thing in pop culture, kind of like Iron Man was for the Marvel Studios line. And we had quite a few Green Lantern waves. But we kind of need a Green Lantern quick history lesson for those of you not familiar with the storyline that inspired this wave. And we're not going to go all the way back to the beginning of Green Lantern history. That's like way too far. In fact, this is probably too far too, in the 60s. There we go. Modern Green Lantern, or at least modern 10 years ago. So let me give a quick review of what was happening in the comic books. Green Lantern, for those of you even unfamiliar, is a space cop powered by a ring, and the ring is green. His archenemy Sinestro has a yellow ring, which is sort of the antithesis of the green ring. It can battle the green ring. And Sinestro, at this time in the comics, formed his own corps, the Sinestro Corps, or Yellow Lantern Corps, where they all had a ring fueled by fear, as opposed to Green Lantern, whose ring is fueled by willpower. After the battle with the Sinestro Corps and the Yellow Lanterns, along came the Red Lanterns, Rage of the Red Lanterns, red being the color of anger. And this gave birth to the multicolored spectrum of rings, where every color, every emotion had a different ring and a different core. Sometimes it was one person, sometimes it was three, sometimes it was an entire legion, and they all had to team up to fight against some cosmic bad guys. And during this struggle, when all of the different colored lanterns wearing their different colored rings and either teaming up or fighting against each other, well, it led to a lot of really great merchandise, first of all, because it was incredibly merchandisable. Comic book stores got all these rings to give out, and t-shirts were basically, flying off the shelves in all the different colors. And during this time, so during the Sinestro Corps War, Rage of the Red Lanterns, and then culminating in a storyline called Blackest Night, where everyone had to team up together, the major heroes of the DC universe were all given lantern rings. And that's what we saw in that lineup. We saw the Atom as the Indigo, Flash as Blue Lantern, Lex Luthor as Orange Lantern, Wonder Woman as Pink Lantern, and at the time when this came out, it was huge. It was the biggest thing to kind of hit DC Comics at the time, and it was hugely popular. And that's where we run into a problem, because there is a 2-year delay from concept to shelf in the toy industry. The toy industry has to go through a lot of steps, from making molds to legal approval to shipping, and at the time when fans are asking for something, at the time Blackest Night as a comic book was shipping, well, fast forward 2 years later when we could finally get Blackest Night product to market. Let's just say that at that time then, Blackest Night was now old news. All of the DC heroes, like Flash and Wonder Woman, having rings was no longer current, and, well, the train had left the station. But at the time, when Blackest Night was in comic book stores, if you will, it was super hot, and we wanted to do the extra work and work really hard to try to tie DCU Classics tighter to current continuity. So we took a really big bet. We said, you know what, all right, Blackest Night, it's the hottest thing in DC Comics right now. We are the hottest DC toy line. All the fans love Blackest Night. We should make a bet and make figures based exclusively on this current toy line, or storyline. And it turned out that once the figure shipped 2 years later, fans were like, what the heck, this is old now. But our hearts were in the right place. They really were. We were trying so hard to tie the DCU Classics toy line into what was happening in the DC Comics on shelf. But unfortunately, that 2-year lapse and the time it takes to get toys to market kind of killed the idea. So a quick look again at the figures. You had Hal Jordan in white and black. So this was from Blackest Night, and then the follow-up was Brightest Day. It was kind of the finale of the whole thing. And he became a Black Lantern, which was an agent of death, and a White Lantern, an agent of life. And again, huge in the comics. Indigo Lantern was represented by the Atom, and he got this really cool tattoo tribal look, and got to wave an awesome staff like all the Blue Lanterns had, and had a Blue Lantern ring. And again, when we chose this figure, this storyline was huge. The Yellow Lantern, because again, every color got a figure, went to Scarecrow, the Batman villain who helped spread fear. And now the interesting thing about this one, in addition to the fact that it's probably the coolest Scarecrow figure we ever did, is that originally Batman was going to be the Yellow Lantern, because Batman also spreads fear amongst criminals. And that's actually even what we were told by DC, and it's why we included a Yellow Lantern Batman even earlier, before this wave, as a Batman figure in a DCU Classics wave, because Batman was supposed to be the Yellow Lantern, and he was actually going to stay as a Yellow Lantern for quite a while, and that wound up not happening in the comics. But it still became a kind of a major variant for toys. Lego took advantage of this, as did Funko Pop. But unfortunately, when we put it out, it looked like we were kind of making something up that wasn't true to the comics, and it kind of backfired. Continuing along with Wave 17, we have Lex Luthor in his orange lantern armor. Construct armor is what it is. It's created by his ring, but yes, I know he looks like a giant fruit pop, an orange like popsicle or something like that, because of how it looks. But it's pretty awesome, and I know, this is what he looked like in the comic. It's not that we were going for a non-decoed clear Lex Luthor. This is what Lex Luthor looked like in Blackest Night, and at the time in the comics, it was hot. And then Wonder Woman as a Pink Lantern, which is the Star Sapphire branch. And, again, Wonder Woman, everyone kind of thought at the time was going to stay a Pink Lantern for quite a while. When it turned out she and all the rest of the DC heroes did not, well, that's basically what all of the backfire was about this wave, was that, we put out these figures that were kind of one-hit wonders as opposed to lasting, beloved incarnations of key DC heroes. So Blue Lantern Flash, while we thought he was going to stick around, he did not. Now you will also notice the one lantern color that is not represented by these DC heroes in Wave 17 is the Red Lanterns, which are powered by rage, each lantern color having an emotion. And that's because the Red Lantern was Mira, Aquaman's wife, and there was just no way to do her without being a fully tooled figure. We looked at different ways of cheating it, looked at different ways of, moving tooling around, and it just, we couldn't find a way to do it. So unfortunately, that's why Mira was not in the wave. She was just no way to do her without a fully 100% tooled figure, and we just couldn't afford that in this wave. So that's why Mira was not included. I know, I'm sad too, because the team is lacking her. All right, so our Build-A-Figure for this wave, as I mentioned in the beginning, was the Anti-Monitor, which was a huge villain in the 80s, huge both in terms of physical size and effect on the DC universe. He was the bad guy from Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was one of the first, well, was the first big DC crossover. And he looked like this in the 80s. In his modern appearance, he was mostly the same. His armor got changed around a little bit, I guess modernized. And while he was still huge physically, the Collect and Connect figure was just about a head and shoulders bigger than a regular DCU Classics figure. We couldn't quite make him, ginormous and, the way he was in the comics. But he was such a cool design, and he was such a big part of the storyline, Blackest Night. Now, we did do a gigantic Anti-Monitor figure for the Infinite Heroes line. This was a giveaway figure, or really a raffled figure done with proof of purchase points. And I'll do a whole video about him in the future. But while we couldn't do the Collect and Connect figure quite at this scale, still with the detailing, with the armor, with the tubing, with the cloth cape, one of the few figures with a cloth cape, and that face, again, the Horsemen nailed it. They always do an amazing face. So while, again, not huge physically from a size standpoint, still an awesome, awesome toy because, again, the Horsemen can make anything brilliant. So this was the great experiment. Can we do a wave linked directly to what is happening currently in the comic books? And kind of the answer was no, we can't, because what's happening in the current comic books, by the time it ships, it's going to be 2 to 3 years later, and that storyline could be old news. So we tried, we really tried. We had the best intentions with this line. And that's kind of just the nature of the beast of the toy industry, is that doing things, shelf to shelf, having a toy represent exactly what's happening in the comic books at the same time is just very difficult to do. And when we did try it, a lot of fans had a negative reaction to this wave and saw it as kind of, the end is nigh, the shark is jumped. But we tried, and we really thought we could do that.